Right, guys, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio. And today we are joined by Coach Ben Tormey. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, just enjoying the sun.
I can see you sitting outside on your balcony in a very, becoming a very warm and very soon humid Dubai as well.
Yeah, while it lasts, yeah, I wanna be outside, but not for not for too long.
Definitely. So just to give everyone a little bit of, I suppose, background, where I suppose Ben became involved with the Better Body Collective is it was alongside when Mal and myself kind of reached out to Mark and Ben initially about collaborating because we saw that we were doing a lot of similar things. We had a very similar mission about what it was we wanted to achieve, the type of people that we wanted to help. So I just thought it would be good to get Ben on, even though our relationship with each other is fairly recent and fairly new, and just give you a chance, Ben, to kind of introduce yourself to our listeners and just let them get to know a bit about your backstory, what motivates you, and what you specialize in helping people with. So I'll spin the first question at you then, which will just be, tell us a bit about your backstory in the industry and where you're from and all of that fun stuff, so people get to know a little bit more about who Ben Tormey is.
Sure. Well, I suppose with all these things, it's tough to know, like, how far back do you go, like into childhood or whatever. But I'll start with the sort of pertinent stuff, right? Because from the training side, which is a thing I guess is relevant to the discussion, I kind of got into training because of a fairly dark period in my life where I was depressed. I was taking medication for depression, and going into like university, I kind of lost a lot of weight, which is weird because most people, when they talk about their story, it's usually weight loss, right? And it's, I was overweight as a kid. I got bullied or something, and for me it was kind of the opposite, where I was very athletic at school. I was never overweight. I never had any, sort of body image issues until some stuff happened to me where I kind of dropped out of school, spent a lot of time basically stuck at home, which is kind of ironic, considering we're back here now, stuck at home. But, it basically put me into quite a deep depression for a while where I didn't really have a direction in life. I lost a lot of weight, so I ended up very, very underweight. And one day I basically just had this realization that, I need to change this. And so I started weight training in parents' garage, actually, just with like basic weight equipment that we bought. And eventually, managed to sort of build the confidence, sort of get in the gym. I felt like, for a long time, I wouldn't fit in if I went to a gym. I actually felt like I didn't belong because I was so skinny at that time. And so that was in my 20s, and coming on to like over a decade now of training, I sort of transitioned from my academic aspirations at that time, where I was at university. I was doing a PhD in mathematics, and I kind of gradually shifted my focus more from the cerebral stuff to the physical. So I kind of realized there was this gap in who I was, where I hadn't developed that side. And I'm very, I guess my natural tendency is to be very single-minded, very focused on one thing at a time. And so it moved from research into, now I want to sort of do bodybuilding type stuff, I want to get bigger muscles, and I kind of became very heavily involved in trying to understand the nutrition and the training science, so I could kind of catch up. I felt like I'd lost all of these years where I could have been training, and I wanted to try and get back to where I felt I should be. So then I, to kind of wrap the story up, I kind of got into training other people because I realized, okay, I seem to know something about this, right? Now maybe I can help other people with their journey. I used to answer questions online on like forums, Facebook pages, and kind of evolved from there, basically.
Very cool. Very cool. So as I tend to do with these sort of interviews, I always like to, if anything pops into my head that might be an interesting tangent to go down, I always like to go there if I can.
Yeah.
In terms of, obviously, because your background is very analytical, it's very, obviously that kind of mathematics, it's either this or this. It's a very
Yeah.
kind of that analytical nature and mindset. Which aspects of your kind of research and your time at university have carried over into your coaching, and how would you say that actually that past has actually helped you as far as being a good coach and effectively coaching people that you help?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to that is a lot of the stuff that we deal with as coaches is data driven, right?
Mm,
It's decisions based on, is there a trend in this person's body weight or measurements or whatever it is, whatever thing we're measuring. Is there a trend? Is there progression in, say, someone's, numbers on a particular set of movements? So from a very basic perspective, data, being able to analyze data and pick out trends is something which is basically, that's mathematical. All of those techniques are mathematical. And then on a just a conceptual level, dealing with abstraction and the idea that, for instance, like, Ross, I know you're very good at biomechanics and understanding of principles, but it's about ability to essentially problem solve, where it's like, okay, this client has come to me, I need to be able to look at them, I need to look at their movement, and I need to figure out what exercises work for this person, what's appropriate, what kind of loading makes sense, what kind of volume. And that is a problem solving exercise. And I think
yeah,
that's one of the things which I think is a skill which is underdeveloped with most coaches. And I think it's one of the things where you can really take all of that stuff from any discipline. It could be physics, chemistry, whatever. It's the idea that I can look at a problem with general principles and kind of filter down to what are the specific things I need to do. And I would say those two things, the data analysis and the problem solving, are the things which carry over from that discipline into this.
yeah, 100%. And I can resonate with that because what a lot of the listeners might not know as of yet, because I've not done my own intro episode, is my background study-wise was accounting and finance. So I definitely relate to
Okay.
the numbers, data-driven, that very problem-solving way of being very analytical with things. And actually, funny enough, I wasn't much of a sciences person even when I was in high school, but physics was my best subject before leaving high school, which is so
Right.
strange because if you'd asked me that at the start when I was flunking it and I was failing it and I wasn't doing very well, by the time I left school, it was my best subject, which is very interesting. It kind of shows you how people's brains work. So this is another tangent question, but it'll be interesting to go down is, so obviously there's this very black and white, analytical, very data-driven aspect to coaching, but given that that's how your brain works for a long period of time, how have you found it then transitioning over to where you have to utilize not only that, but you then have to be able to work with what is the emotional creature, which is a human being, and all of the things that go around the very abstract elements of mindset, of motivation, of behavior change.
Yeah.
Which aspects of that have you found? Well, I guess the question is, have you found that challenging? And if you have, which aspects have been the hardest to kind of, I suppose, build skill sets and strategies to then be able to help people with those different issues?
Yeah, so that's an area where I basically had to learn all of that stuff, because I basically, ever since I was a kid, right, at school, I was kind of clearly on the autistic spectrum, right? So I couldn't make eye contact with teachers. I would get shouted at for not looking people in the eye and all this kind of stuff, where, classic sort of Asperger's autism type symptoms, which my parents recognized quite early on. And so I didn't really interact with other people very comfortably, and I couldn't process my own emotions very well. I couldn't pick up on other people's emotions, like when my mum was angry with me, for instance, because I stepped too far, over the line as a kid. I just didn't recognize it, right? And I think having to learn all of that stuff, like having to learn how to pick up on other people's body language, read people, understand my own thinking, my own emotions as well. I think it just allowed me to then apply that to other people, because I think one of the things I've always said about like social skills is that they're social skills because they can be learned and improved, right? And most people take it for granted that you can just walk into a room and kind of just get on with people, but actually not everyone finds it that easy. And I think with coaching, it's being able to strip back what you see on the outside and try and get in someone's inner state. And I think because of that journey, I was forced to actually try and do that because I didn't have an option really in terms of just being able to interact with people. And so that analytical skill was also what allowed me to then develop more of the soft skills, the sort of psychology of it. And I think then it also allowed me to understand more of that and internalize more of it, so that it wasn't just a purely analytical exercise. I was able to sort of see the empathetic side of it more. But I think that just that ability to, like we talked about before, just to step out of your own situation, to look at it in terms of general principles, again, is like the same thing. It's understanding that, this person's coming to me today on the gym floor. I can see they're agitated, right? So I know that today, my first task is going to just to be getting them focused on what we do here and maybe unpacking some of why that is, and not, maybe not addressing it directly, but just understanding that people have all of this internal stuff going on, which is unrelated to what you do. So I hope that answers the question, but yeah.
Yeah, ideally, yeah, perfectly. And I think it's so interesting because so many professions, not just ours included, are so reliant on this idea of having like an IQ. But the reality is, almost nowadays, is the most important currency, or one of the most important currencies we can have, is to have EQ, to have that emotional intelligence, to be able to interact with others and to read people, and to know when to auto-regulate based on not just what things say on like a spreadsheet or the numbers, but actually be able to look at someone in the eyes and kind of go, you know what, I need to adjust things today, or we need to taper back, or actually we can kick on a little bit more as well. So I think that's for me at least, it's a very underutilized and under kind of developed skill for coaches. I think it's not given enough practice in the fitness industry, especially. We don't put anywhere near enough emphasis on developing those soft skills. It's all about how much can you understand about biomechanics and programming and nutrition theory, but what about human behavior and understanding what makes people tick, and why one day when someone turns up and they're just like, okay, well, you were able to do this exact same thing last week, and now you literally, it looks as if you've not remembered anything that I've taught you, and maybe able to dive deeper as to why that's happening. So I agree. I think it's a hugely interesting area. So let's kind of bring it back to you and a little bit more of your background. So you obviously mentioned kind of your childhood to a degree, bringing it up to this kind of present day. But if you think about when you got started in the fitness industry and all the points in between, at what point in your fitness career did you realize, well, actually, this is the career path for me?
Yeah, that's another great question. It was probably like a few years in, to be honest, because initially when I started out, it was me and a couple of friends. We started the business and we started doing online coaching, and we honestly, like, back then, that was over 10 years ago. Well, actually, sorry, no, it was not over 10 years ago. It was coming up close to that. When online fitness was kind of nascent, and we got into it probably not at the very beginning, but when it was still a new thing, really. And we kind of just thought, well, who would pay for this, right? It just didn't seem like no, who would, like, what would you even charge? £5, £10? Like, it was that kind of stupid like discussion where like we had no idea how to even price what we were doing, and we worked with a bunch of people for free, and we kind of felt like, I guess there was a good part to that where we didn't have any expectations that we were good enough to actually go out and charge money for this. Like, we wanted to kind of get results for people. We wanted to actually justify whatever it was we charge, and so I ended up basically just working, some sort of part-time jobs on the side. I used to do some like work in nightclubs because I had a lot of friends in the nightclub industry, and it was fun, especially, like with the university, with research, you make money on the side anyway with like marking undergraduate homework. So like the concern wasn't with like making it a fully fledged business at that point. And then probably maybe 3 years in, even, I would say 2-3 years, I kind of felt like, you know what, this is something I think I could make a full-time job. I could make this my main source of income. I can forget all the other stuff. If I just do this, I think I can make money. And that was when I sort of went off on my own, kind of splintered off from the other guys. And I think that was the point when that happened. It was probably a good, I would say, 2 years into it.
Nice. Very good. It's always super interesting to hear because I think it happens for everyone at different points, the breakthrough, as I like to call it. And I think if I had to think about mine, it was not long before coming out here. And I think a lot of people often get into the industry for one of two reasons, right? It's either going to be from frustration with what they're currently doing, which is kind of where I was at. I was kind of post-grad, trying to get into jobs that I just really didn't like. I was doing like recruitment consulting and insurance, and it was just like, what am I doing? This is not what I want to be doing. I always remember to this day, I had an ad come up on my computer screen when I was looking through ads as a part of being a recruitment consultant, and it was become a personal trainer and make £30,000 plus per year. You probably remember those ads. Everyone got them, selling you the dream. And to be honest, the money wasn't even the thing. I just remember back then thinking, you know what? I'm just not happy with what I'm doing. I'm just going to take the risk and I'll just make the gamble. Like, what else am I going to do at this point in time? I'd be as well try to do something that I'm passionate about. And I don't think I really fully understood the gravity of that situation until all of a sudden I was here. I was in Dubai and I was like, frick, I'm actually doing this as a career. So yeah, and I think the other type of person gets into it because they're a fitness enthusiast and they think, oh, well, I enjoy training myself, so I should be able to do this with other people. And as you and I both well know, is that not everyone who is a fitness enthusiast necessarily has the skill set and the offset to coach people. And actually, sometimes they often realize, which is why there's such a high dropout rate in the industry. Sometimes they get a year in and they actually realize, you know what? It's really not a glamorous industry. I have to do long ass hours. I need to actually learn how to communicate and care about the other person more than just I care about myself and how much I enjoy training. And then they almost start to get this realization that coaching and training yourself are two completely different beasts. So I think that is a super interesting aspect of the industry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I came from the complete more similar to like your journey, which was I was sort of overqualified for basically any of the jobs that were kind of going. And I just didn't want to do a finance job. I didn't want to spend all day, doing like some kind of risk analysis for some consultancy firm or something like that. It didn't mesh with me. And I think I came from like the opposite of what you described, which I think is the norm, which is that I was like supremely underconfident in my abilities. I would always doubt myself, like doubt the quality of the advice I was giving, always think there was something I should be doing better. So I think I had to sort of go the other way, which was like, okay, figure out that, I should be more confident about this because I actually have decent results at this and I kind of do know what I'm doing. And I think, like you said, the tendency is for people to be overconfident in their skill set, and it's, they need a bit of rebalancing there.
Definitely. So let me ask you, this is a very straight to the point question. What motivates you most as a coach? What gets you out of bed early in the morning to go and to serve other people?
I think it comes back to just the mastery of the skill set and the problem solving part of it, where it's really, the thing I like is knowing that someone out there has come to me for advice and I can give them some kind of perspective or unlock something for them that transforms, the way they think or the way they look at themselves. And every person has their own unique set of situations and circumstances, which makes that kind of a fresh problem every day. So like, for instance, when this whole thing hit, right, it's suddenly like, okay, so now I've got to figure out how I get this person who was maybe doing a fairly advanced gym routine before, how do I figure out a decent substitute in terms of home workout routines where they're getting some level of challenge, some level of progression, even though the circumstances are not great. And that, I think, is what it comes down to. It's that every day, every morning you wake up and there might be an email from someone. It's like something that you haven't encountered before, or it's a fresh take on it, or it's something where you actually really know that when you open that email and say, I know exactly the answer for this guy, right? And I think that's what it is. It's that continual feeling of like that you've helped someone. And if it wasn't for that, if I didn't feel like I could do that, I don't think I would be doing it.
The common thread that good coaches that I know that I've met over the years seem to have is this idea that they all live with this idea of service, constantly wanting to serve others and to provide as much value to others. But then to the similar token, the second common theme that always come across again and again is every single one of the coaches I know who are getting good results, who keep their skin in the game for a long time, is because they're hungry. They're hungry to constantly develop and to progress, not only as coaches, but actually just to become better human beings as well. So I think that's it's always interesting.
Yeah.
That same theme comes through again and again and again and again. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you on that. And I think that's my observation as well. It's, I think as soon as you stop caring about getting better is when you stop being effective at this, right? And I've seen that, you know, happen with other people. And even I've noticed that sometimes where I've had to kind of say to myself, look, you know what, I can see that the last few weeks, maybe I've not been putting my full level of enthusiasm into these sessions. I've not been delivering what I could deliver to these clients, and it's complacency sometimes that sets in, even when you have the best intentions. But I think you have to want to do better. Otherwise, that complacency just sets in over time, and it becomes the norm. And eventually, you wake up one day, and you know it's all kind of there's nothing left for you. You know, you no longer want to be in the industry. You want to, you know, become an electrician or something like that. You know, it's just, it's something I've seen with other people. Like, it becomes this kind of rot that sets in when you don't want to go beyond where you are. Because I think the other thing is, you know, that's what you're asking all of your clients to do on a daily basis. You're asking them to do something more than what they've been doing in some dimension. And if you aren't going to do that yourself in, you know, in whatever form, it's kind of a bit dishonest as well to ask that of other people.
Definitely. And I think it is interesting because, like you said, clients are often looking to their coach, not just for the strategies and the tools and everything else, but, you know, you are a source of inspiration to your clients. And like you said, I think the coaches that seem to be going through the periods where they're getting the best results, it just so happens that they're either, say, for example, preparing for a show, or they're training for a specific goal in mind, or they're leveling up their business or their nutrition knowledge. They're stretching themselves in some way that goes beyond their perceived current level of tolerable discomfort. And I think that's, like you said, all we're ever asking our clients to do is, what is your current tolerable level of discomfort that your brain is happy with, and how can we just put the things in place to get you just that little step over past that point. So I think that's so true. So if I had to ask you in terms of, and I know you might have outlined some of this already, but this is a good chance to kind of go in a little bit more granular on that, is if you had to summarize what it is you do as far as specializing in to help people, what would you say it is?
Yeah. So I think I've realized that I work best with people who are somewhat similar to me, right? Which is people who have a kind of technical mindset, an analytical mindset, and often people who struggle with the same issues as me. So typically it ends up being more guys than girls. So it's like, it is heavily skewed towards men, but not exclusively men. And mostly people with a scientific or technical background. So I work with loads, like so many computer programmers you wouldn't believe, you know, engineers, people who are from a science background, because they are at least on some part of the same journey as me. Like, I see it like I may in some areas be further along than them. And so all I'm doing is kind of passing on some of the things I've learned about my journey and hoping that that will help them unlock something. And most of the time, that's where it comes from, is like, I've just experienced something and I've got an insight into it that maybe they didn't have. And it's just that key, sometimes one or two things which you do for that person, which suddenly opens up everything else. And a lot of the time, what I'm helping my clients with is getting past the over-analysis, like getting past the hang-ups of like knowing what to do in the gym, but then like over-programming or over-analyzing little details and not making progress because actually you know too much stuff. Like, you know all of the stuff you should be doing, but what you're missing is like the execution. And I think that was, it usually comes back to the stuff that I struggle with. And then I basically pass that on to someone who is at some stage of that journey. So I would say it's basically people end up looking somewhat like me.
Yeah, it's funny because there's two very cool points to kind of add on. That would be this. I like to use this term as people nowadays in the fitness industry. It's very easy to major in the minors. And a lot of people like to do that. They like to think,
Yeah.
what exact supplement should I be taking for X? What's the absolute perfect workout split to achieve X? Versus, like you say, just can you actually just put something in place that nails the basics and that you can do that consistently for a period of time? And it's often, like you said, what is holding people back is that they think it's got to be a lot harder, more complicated than it has to be at the start. So that's so true.
Yeah.
The second thing was I was watching a specific lecture from the Fitness Unfiltered event that just passed this past weekend. I don't know if you saw that
Right. Yeah.
Dr. Mike II and Emma Story Gordon, and they were running this event.
Yeah.
And so they had a couple of the guys on there who are marketing specialists. So they had like Paul Mort, who's a bit of a character. They had James Smith on there as well.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
And they had another lady called Tanya Feiler, and they had a guy as well, Jude something as well. But the funny thing is they asked, I think it was either Tanya or Paul, but they asked, like, in terms of clients, like you said, the majority of the time, actually, the type of clients you do attract are people who are very similar to you in some way. Because ultimately, if you think about it, you're going to communicate that out to the world, and most, at least authentic coaches, are going to communicate that way on social media. And so naturally speaking, like you say, if you are someone who's a bit more technical and a bit more analytical, and I almost took stock of this recently as well, because I started attracting a lot more advanced trainees and actually a lot more coaches as clients in the recent last year, because I've been a bit more just myself in terms of my social media. And it is so funny how you will attract a somewhat like for like. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but I think that's so true. People do end up doing that. And I think then that actually then comes right back to one thing that you said about helping people, is that if you're staying exactly where you are and you're the same person you are now 5 years from now, what that means is that you can no longer expect to work with more advanced clients until you advance yourself. You have to level up yourself first before you can expect to have clients who are ready to level up as well. So I think that's quite a cool thing to think about for coaches as well, is if you want clients to level up, you got to level up too. Cool. So that's
100%.
Yeah. So that's the end of the any planned questions that I had. So I think, is there any final points that you maybe want to touch on? Any messages for people out there who during this time are maybe going through a bit of a tough time? Like you said, you have had your own. Certainly, when you're younger, you certainly struggle with certain depression, certain mental health issues. In terms of people suffering from mental health issues now, is there any kind of little nugget of advice you'd maybe give someone who's struggling at this point in time?
Yeah, I think what I would say to that is that I spent pretty much a year of my life at home because I was actually afraid of leaving the house, right? I had anxiety to the point where I didn't even want to step out the door. So I was effectively locked down. No one was forcing me to be locked down for almost an entire year. And I know how dark that gets. And I know that it's not natural. It's not healthy for you. And at the same time, despite things seeming as dark as that, like when things seem bleak and there's no hope, that is not the time to give up on anything, right? It's the time where you need to sort of look at your inner resources and you need to start finding something that you can work towards, right? Whatever it is, being curious about something, being not necessarily hopeful, but just engaged in something, right? That gets you out of that. And I think what I found, that was when I stumbled across the thing that actually got me to university, which was mathematics, right? I didn't actually have any interest in it before when I was at school. And so that was the lowest point in my life that actually took me to where I got to, right? And that whole set of events, if I hadn't gone through that, I never would have gone on that journey and been here now, like talking to you today, right? So I think it's important to just keep perspective on like the fact that whatever you're experiencing right now can't last forever. And even now, you can find some resource that you can take advantage of, whether or not that's free time, being curious about things, or even losing an opportunity somewhere else and realizing that there is another opportunity that you could be working towards, right? There's always something you can gain from it. And I think my journey, it's been a long one in terms of getting over that depression, but it's taught me that how you feel about situations can never be your guide in terms of what action you take, right? Because your feelings will always lie to you, right? They will always tell you that the world is ending, that there is no hope anywhere, there's no point doing something. And so if you can get past all of that and just recognize that they aren't giving you useful information about your situation, then you'll have learned a really important life skill that will carry you through all of the bad things that happen in future and all the good things. So I don't know, maybe there's more than one piece of advice, but that would be what I would try and get across.
No, I think that's an ideal place to call it a day. But that was I thought there was a lot of really nice tangents and little meandering places we went down there. So I thought that, for me, I certainly found that a very insightful and very interesting conversation. Ben, where can people best connect with you?
So I have a newsletter, an Instagram profile, so you can get me at Ben Tormey on Instagram, and then benjamintormey.com for my newsletter. I don't publish too many articles now. I mainly just write newsletters once a week, so either of those two places would be good, and obviously follow Better Body Collective for more updates in future.
Awesome. And we will link all of that into the show notes anyway on iTunes and for YouTube when it eventually gets up there as well. As many of you might see from when you watch this on YouTube or listen back, we will have had to have done a fair bit of editing to this given the connectivity issues. But hey, hope that's just a part of the game when it comes to podcasting over Wi-Fi. So all good. Ben, thanks so much for your time. For everyone else listening out there, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Remember, with any podcast, any show, when it starts off, the more support we can get from the listeners and from our clients to get this thing in front of as many people as we possibly can, then the more people we can help. And especially as we start doing more of the subject-based podcasts, and as we start getting more expert speakers on, we're going to be trying our best to deliver as much value and quality information to as many people as we can. So please do take the time to head over to iTunes, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and that would be the best thing that you guys could help us out with at the moment. Once again, Ben, thanks very much, and we'll be catching up soon, hopefully.
Thank you.